so you can say amen. Praise the Lord. So that word beauty depicts a manifesting of our attitude in worship towards the Lord. Worship in each of these verses that we read literally means to bow down or to prostrate oneself. And we've been there before. We mentioned that before. That's what the word worship means. In all three of these verses, when it says worship the Lord in the beauty of holiness, to come with a celebratory spirit, but also to come with a humble spirit and a willingness to fall if necessary, bow down and prostrate ourselves before the Lord. Now, this posture it's not just in a physical sense. Now, if we're able to do so, that's fine. Many people aren't able to posture themselves like that. Many people aren't able to get on their knees because of bad knees. Many people aren't, we need to get healed. If that's the case, we need to get healed. But many people are not able to posture themselves before the Lord by laying prostrate before Him or bowing or whatever. But it does mean, even if you can't do it physically, you should be able to do it spiritually. In our heart, in our spirit, we need to posture ourselves humbly, in a spirit of humility and submission in awe of God and in the worship of Him. So when we approach God in worship, bowing before Him in humble gratitude, in a spirit of gratitude, a spirit of gratefulness, a spirit of thankfulness, we begin to sense a marvelous transformation that takes place when we do that. The song that we sang a while ago, "Hear I cry, O Lord, attend unto my prayer. From the ends of the earth will I cry out to Thee. And when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that's higher than I." That's an attitude of worship and humility before the Lord and recognizing His awesome presence. And so in our worship, our attention needs to be focused upon our pure and powerful God who's in control of every circumstance of our life, every circumstance that we face, including those that we're facing right now, those I mentioned a few minutes ago. Those circumstances are circumstances I'd rather not face, but in the midst of all that, I think that's why the Lord led me to those songs this morning. In the midst of all those trying circumstances, those challenging circumstances, those faith-stretching circumstances, in the midst of all that, He's still God. In the midst of all that, He's still on the throne. So Lord, when my heart is feeling overwhelmed, as it has been in the last couple of months, when my heart's feeling overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that's higher than I am. Lead me to the one who's going to see us through whatever it is that we're facing right now. And of course, this is illustrated very powerfully in the experience of the prophet Isaiah. We sang about it in one of those courses just a few minutes ago. We sang about coming into His presence and recognizing His holiness. And in Isaiah's situation, turn to Isaiah chapter 6. Isaiah chapter 6. Discouraged over the circumstances of King Uzziah's death, Isaiah experienced a transformation. Not in his circumstances, but in his spirit. He began to experience an amazing transformation. You see, Isaiah was already a prophet, already walking in the prophetic, already a prophet of the Lord. But even Isaiah, or had already called to that, but even Isaiah, listen, I don't care what stage we're at in our spiritual walk with God, we always are in need of transformations or transforming experiences in the Lord. Experiences all kinds of experiences of life that life brings to us. The death of a loved one, the change of jobs. In other words, all the experiences that we classify as being times of grief. Because in life changes, it brings along a certain aspect of grief. We grieve over certain things. We grieve not just over death, we grieve over changes in life, job change. We grieve over divorces. We grieve over most anything that has a life-changing effect on your life. There's a time or period of grief to a certain degree in all these things because change brings that along. And so the changes in life that brings these circumstances are also transformative changes. They're they're faith-stretching changes. They're changes and challenges that challenge your faith, that stretch your faith, and you can become bitter or better out of these challenging circumstances and trials. You can become a bitter person or a better person. Because that's the transformation you're facing when you're facing these things. And so Isaiah was grieved over King Uzziah's death. Uzziah was a great king. Isaiah was grieved over it, and he faced a transforming experience in his circumstance, or in his spirit, not in his circumstance, but in his spirit. Because that's where initially these transformations had to take place. We don't know if God's going to change the situation or circumstance, but God does have to transform our spirit to rely upon Him and trust Him in these situations and circumstances. Am I making sense? All right. So, when Isaiah focused on our exalted God, and he heard these seraphim in this chapter, acknowledging God's holiness, conviction grasped his soul. He was changed, and he was given a renewed spiritual drive to address his circumstances.